I got engaged in 2020 and spent pretty much all of the next year and a half saving up for a fun wedding, or at least saving up to be able to fill everyone to the brim with tacos, drinks, and as much mashed potatoes as they could safely handle while still getting down on the dance floor. If you need one good reason to have a wedding, it's so that you can decide to have a fancy mashed potato bar that you will brag about for the rest of your life. Every complaint I've ever had about a wedding is something like, well, first off, there was nothing to eat except a giant vat of clam chowder on the hottest day of the year. This is my main complaint about an otherwise fine wedding I actually went to. And that was about a decade ago, and here I am still complaining about it. So I did not want a bad food wedding. Anyway, my now husband Clay and I spent almost 2 years pinching pennies and staying in and saving and saving and saving up to feed everyone in our lives at a mashed potato bar. So by the time we were married and planning our honeymoon, we wanted to get the hell out of the house and finally have some fun on a 3-week honeymoon to a bunch of countries in Europe. We would go to Edinburgh in Scotland, to London, Paris, and a few cities in Spain. We were so excited. My husband hadn't been to any of these places before, but I'd been to Edinburgh, London, and Paris with my improv team in college. I loved spending time in all those cities as a college student, and it would be so fun to see them again years later. Visit all those hot spots now as an actual adult. When you're 23, you're technically an adult, but your brain isn't formed yet. My therapist told me that. So it's true. And it's the same way you're technically, physically an adult when you go through puberty. Sure, I guess you are, but don't do anything crazy like getting married, and you really shouldn't be allowed to rent a car. I don't care what science or the law says, but in my book, you're going through puberty from your teens through at least your mid-20s, and then you can start making real decisions. We decided to start our trip in Edinburgh for the same reason most people decide on a honeymoon destination. There was a 3-day improv comedy festival there, and I could teach some workshops to offset the cost of the trip. What can I say? I'm a romantic. The night we got in, we went out to dinner at this place called The Witchery, a fancy Gothic-themed restaurant near the castle where we had an expensive wine and steak tartare at a candlelit table. As we walked back to our hotel, we passed a street that led to my favorite late-night chip shop from my college trip, where you could get a deep-fried Mars bar, a deep-fried sandwich, deep-fried haggis, anything deep-fried. I remember in college one night, my friends and I were all drunk, and we decided we tried to convince the person working there to deep-fry my buddy Mike's glove. He refused, and we were furious. It would be so funny, we explained to him, and this logic did not sway this man. Back to the present, the day after our witchery dinner, on my way to teach a workshop, I passed the Three Sisters, which was a club beloved to me as a 23-year-old, where I once kissed a stranger on the dance floor just so I could take a drag of his cigarette. When I gave him his cigarette back, he tried to kiss me again, and I said, no thanks, but thank you for the cigarette. I was so polite. I am not a smoker in the U.S., but in the U.K., I was on vacation, and it was very cool and very adult. So back to the present, I kept walking. I took a hit of my asthma inhaler and taught my workshop. Afterwards, I took a stroll down a different street, passing a location of a now-closed 5-story club called Espionage, each floor with a different DJ playing music, though they all really sounded just like house music. The last time I was there, I got into a gigantic fight with my bestie/frenemy Tanner after drinking somewhere between 4 and 70 beers, yelling about something I really can't remember about. I think she was mad because I was bossing people around, or I was mad because she was doing the same thing, or maybe I was best friends with her crush and she was jealous, or she was best friends with my crush and I was jealous. Either way, it must have worked out because we definitely both made out with our crushes and lots of other people. At the end of that trip, my improv team gave each other awards based on bits and stupid things we did during the 3 weeks we were there for the Fringe Festival. And one of my awards was the Floozy Award because I made out with so many people during those 3 weeks, both teammates and strangers. And I wore my ribbon with honor because I'm just so friendly. Back to the present, our last honeymoon night in Edinburgh, Clay and I went out to a bar that had a live band playing lots of covers of songs that I would have been dancing to at 23. We danced and belted out to Stacy's Mom, and he got a kiss on the dance floor without even having to barter a cigarette. I only kissed one guy that night, and I would not be receiving the Floozy Award in Scotland this time. We woke up with massive hangovers and took the train to London next, where we met up with my old bestie and sometime frenemy Tanner for lunch from the espionage fight fame. She now lives in England with her husband and their two beautiful babies with adorable British accents. And the biggest fight we had that day was debating who was happier to see the other. Clay and I spent the rest of our time in London doing very adult things like going to museums, having high tea, eating great food, mostly at places that didn't have fryers you could see through the front windows. The last time I was in London, I spent my time smoking, eating chips with brown sauce, which is just fries covered in gravy, and dancing my night away at an Australian-themed club that I think was called Down Under, though that feels inaccurate and it kind of feels offensive. But we had been taken there by an Australian guy who we met at our hostel. So if it's inaccurate and offensive, the Aussie guy played a prank on us that is still paying dividends later. And I'm glad I didn't kiss him. I think. I can't remember. My husband and I left London to head to Paris. And the last time I was in Paris was years ago. I was a relatively poor 21-year-old. Not poor. I was in Paris with my friends. So I was in Paris with my friends after all, but we had spent all of our money to get our flights and our cheap hotel in Paris. Once we were there, we had more than one day where we bought a loaf of bread and a cheap bottle of wine for €1 that we claimed was the best wine on earth. And we ate and drank the day away in a park. We were so bohemian. Another very bohemian thing I did was in Paris was get a rash all over my body on my arms and legs. I blamed it on the subway or the dirty city air, which it may have been, or it could have been the fact that we were staying in the cheapest hotel in Montmartre and I was consuming only bread and wine. So maybe it was bed bugs and maybe it was scurvy. My friend Jenny and I went to the hospital to get it checked out, and we had an absolute hellish time in the waiting room, the horrors of which I truly cannot remember correctly. My brain has turned those memories into single images, probably for my own good. I only remember flashes of vomit and blood and the faces of cartoonishly unhappy people. When I finally saw someone, no one spoke English, and I was examined half naked in a hallway. I left with some mystery ointment that was probably just lotion and a bill for €20, which I never paid because I needed those euros. That would buy me at least 20 bottles of the world's best wine that we could drink back in our gross hotel room while we watched The Simpsons in French. Honeymoon Paris was a different story, and not just because of the honeymoon. I had money and sense now, and not a lot of either, but I was old enough to know that it's important to have money to use once you're at your destination. Bohemian Paris is charming, but Paris is even better when you can eat in restaurants that have chairs, and when you can stay in hotels that definitely have clean sheets, and when you can buy the €5 bottle of wine. Maybe 10. It's our honeymoon after all. Who knows? We moved on to Spain after having an amazing time in Paris, to cities neither of us had been before, forming memories that will now be used for comparison the next time we return, older and wiser, and maybe more adult now. Who knows? The next time I might look at the decisions I made on this trip and think of how fun and silly I was. A child. Basic tea and crumpets. Only a €10 bottle of wine. Only restaurants that have chairs. Teaching a 5-hour improv class on vacation. That's true. It's so dumb. No visit to the hospital. They're back now. You have to go to the hospital now that you're 80. The fluids in the waiting room are unlike anything you've ever seen. As I get older, I'm trying to be kinder to my current self, as well as the self of the past who made so many poorly thought out, impulsive decisions. I'm glad I went a little wild in my 20s, trying to eat a deep-fried glove and kissing everyone within arm's reach. I'm glad I danced on each of the 5 floors of espionage and smoked some cigarettes and drank so much crappy French wine with my friends. I'm not glad I got bedbug scurvy and that my brain had to create a new system for storing memories so that I couldn't remember that hospital that well, but I am glad that it ultimately wasn't too bad for me. The me of my 20s was a little rowdy, a little thirsty, a little basic, sometimes a little dim-witted, but she was fun and silly and friendly, maybe too friendly at times to strangers. But I like that I got to be her. I still get a little rowdy and thirsty and basic and dim-witted now, and I embrace it. I'm glad that I haven't abandoned and written off all the dumb choices of 23-year-old Sarah, but I'm also glad that she is embracing her status as an adult a bit more now. She hasn't kissed a stranger for a drag of his cigarette in years, and she's made the very smart and adult choice to have a mashed potato bar at her wedding. Thanks.